so for me, what I was presented to me, there was an opportunity to get involved in this volunteer aspect. And I think the idea of trying to find a way to bring, and when I moved here to town, I guess the good way to summarize it, the 76 station, which is now CVS, had been painted colorfully and was a crystal shop. So I think anything we can do to kind of raise the profile of our city from an aesthetic point of view and a planning point of view is something I'm very keen to at least stay abreast of, if not have a chance to be involved in.
I miss the Shastina burgers from the 76 myself.
That was before his time.
Nice.
I know where your storefront is, but just to reiterate.
For the record.
That it is in the downtown part so that you will have a direct influence on the DIAC.
Correct. Yeah. So my business leases the space at 319 North Mount Shasta Boulevard, and one of the anchor tenant of that space, aside from my consulting firm, Transformative, is Mountain Co-work, which is going to basically be represented on the facade, and it's a co-working space where we provide location for people in town or visitors to come and have a WeWork-like experience, if you will. And have a place to work outside of their Airbnbs, since we have so many issues with connectivity and whatnot here around town and in the area.
Okay, do I have any other questions? Motion for approval?
I will move to approve Joseph Margart to the Downtown Enhancement Advisory Committee.
Second.
I would second.
Oh, Casey seconded? Okay.
I did. It doesn't matter. One of us did.
Thank you, Casey. All right, then I'll do with Casey out of town, we'll do a roll call vote on this.
Oh. Councilwoman Clore. Aye. Councilman Collings.
Aye.
Councilman Stackflett. Aye. Councilman Glodman.
Aye.
Mayor Redmond.
Aye.
All
right.
ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Excellent.
All right, thank you, Joseph.
Thank you, guys.
Looking
forward to
it. Cheers.
So we'll close that. Regular meeting will be in about 6 minutes. January 13th, 2025. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do the roll call, please.
One moment. Councilwoman Clerk. Here. Councilman Collings.
Here.
Councilman Stackflet.
Here.
Councilman Globman.
Here.
Mayor Redmond.
Here. All right. And we have no special presentations this evening, so we'll move into public comment. This is for anybody who wants to talk about anything not on the agenda tonight. 3 minutes, state your name and your address where you're from, and whoever wants to jump in first. I see Joanna is in line. Okay.
I didn't see anyone else. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I just want to say thank you very much for the recycle bins. I was really excited to get those. And then that begged the question, when are we getting the yard compost bins? And one of the reasons I'm asking about that particularly now is because of the fire danger. And because we have, a lot of fires in our state. And the waste management, I called the city and then I spoke to the waste management people, which I was referred to. And they're going to look into it. But I have a workaround idea that I proposed to them and that waste management said was okay to go ahead and do. So I want to share that with the city council. And I didn't get a chance to send an email to you guys on this, but sorry, I'm out of breath. There was a long train on the way over here. But basically what customers can do with their yard waste is they can take a 32-gallon bag. There's a $4 charge, and they just have to call one time, and they put them on the list for additional pickups. And if you put your yard waste in that, you can have an additional bag or two or whatever, and they will charge you for it. But that's one way that we can encourage our residents to, clean up and take care of yard waste, because we have a pretty nice January coming up. So anyway, it was just an idea, and I just wanted to share that because I thought that might be a good idea for us, considering where we live. And then on the topic of fire danger, I just wanted to ask once again, and I know I've asked for this in past years, is that our town get a siren so that we have an alarm that sounds for the whole community. And I realize it may not reach every single outlying, mountain area, but at least for the downtown, because not everybody has their phones necessarily on them and they're not looking at them 100%. And that way everyone's alerted to an evacuation order or whatever else, because we can set the ringtones for like a horn or a siren to have different ringtones. They do that in Europe, where they have different sounds for an avalanche versus a fire versus, different things. So it's just something to consider. And I heard it again on the news. Some of the fire people were saying that that is the way to go, and that's what they prefer. And so I just want to once again share that here, because I really do strongly believe that's, even if it's a rudimentary thing, even if it's an air horn and we're out there, we have block captains and we, do an air horn. So anyway, that was it. And I'm really excited about the recycle bins. So thank you. And Happy New Year again.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
Name, please.
Johanna Altorfer.
One more time.
Johanna Altorfer. Altorfer.
This is her first meeting. She's getting the new names.
That's all good. Welcome.
Thank you.
Go ahead, next.
Hello, hello. My name is Tracy J. Costello. I live on North C Street, 107. I've been there for 7 years. Been in the area for over 30 years. I was really disappointed with the outcome of the election for the sales tax. It was a great idea. I think we made a mistake by requiring a 2/3 vote on that. Wairika got a new firehouse for their fire department on a simple majority vote, 50% plus one. Wairika was able to get a new firehouse and a lot of income on a new sales tax in Wairika on a 50% plus one vote. We opted to get a 2/3 vote. We didn't learn anything, I guess, from the park bond a few years back. Pretty difficult to get a 2/3 vote on the affirmative for any kind of tax, because taxes are unpopular. And the 2/3 vote requirement enables a very small minority to dictate how things are going to happen. It's a sad thing you went for the 2/3. You could have gone for the majority plus one. But and we did get 51% on that, which is an affirmative. And I was the one that set up, went between the Teamsters Union of the Police Department and Fire and the Z100 FM. I hooked them up so we could have good radio commercials for the measure. I believe that may have made the difference. We had a lot of spots on the radio. That may have made the difference for the 51%, which was a good approval. So it was an approval for the tax. And I think that one of the reasons why it failed was that ballot letter that was submitted on the ballot workbook by the city clerk, not her, but the other clerk, Candy, I guess his name was, and I guess he's against taxes. He swore the money would not be going where he said it was going to go, which is a virtual lie. I don't know where that guy came from, and I think we should figure out a way to censure that Kennedy guy the way we did with the missing member now years back. We should censor him, or at least get rid of him. He is the reason. Kennedy is the reason why that not bond measure, but the sales tax failed. It was all blatant. He said you guys were not going. You were going to spend the money elsewhere. And he's a member of your organization. I can't believe you let him get away with that. I believe his name's Kennedy. Looks like we have another Kennedy out there that's no good. Thank you. Oh, yeah, you got my name. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you very much. And Chief Gibson's been doing a tremendous job. Hats off to Chief Gibson. I don't know why he's not here, but Chief Gibson's been a great leader. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else from the public?
I'm David Ream, Mount Shasta. In one of City Council meetings in the end of last year, in a unanimous vote, Mount Shasta directed the city manager to prepare the purchase for $80,000, Mr. Brownell's 2 parcels on Chestnut Street. These properties are the linchpin to the successful execution of the daylighting of Castle Creek. Sadly, I read no mention of this directive in tonight's agenda. Also, just last fall, the long-serving Mrs. Terrell, our previous finance director, stated in both the Beautification Committee and at City Council, cash at hand in the downtown business district was roughly $70,000. This district, chartered many years ago, first named the Parking District, has subsequently been renamed DIAC. Nonetheless, a natural, logical, and legal source for funding the property's purchase, a purchase easy on the budget. The ad hoc committee established to research this endeavor has 2 city council members and has been meeting for 2 years. They have presented the effort to City Council with a beautiful, well-crafted presentation by Mr. Heseltons. Later, a special public outreach meeting occurred to bring the enterprise to the public in order to gauge public interest. It was widely received as a great enhancement to our city and for further economic stimulation to our tourist-based economy. The reason for this future parking lot on these two parcels is so vital is to publicly provide spaces to make up for spaces lost in the daylighting creation. Much time and money has been invested in this project. The city continues to rent these properties. Environmental studies have been completed to understand current conditions, as well as historic facts have been presented. I humbly suggest for the purchase of these parcels to proceed. Upon this purchase, Mr. Heselden's can begin to write and submit applications for grants to finance this project. Funding sources have already been identified. Upon completion of the total project, this will be the greatest enhancement of our city in its long history. It is beauty that attracts tourists and investors. From the peak of the mountain
The 3
we
minutes
live
are up.
on,
Mr. Ream, 3 minutes are up.
From the peak
We're
of
going to have
the-
to cut you off and move on to somebody else now. Your 3 minutes
from
are
the
up.
peak of the mountain we live on, it's
Can we cut off his microphone? His 3
To it-
minutes are up. Anybody else from the audience?
Sorry, I was timing it. Greetings, I'm Tim Belton of Mount Shasta. I'm here to voice my perspective on mobile lodging within the city. We want to use our parking lot as for Spring Hill Nursery and Gardens to offer safe off-street parking for guests and vehicles up to 25 feet. Our intention is to allow 4 vehicles per night with no use of tents or fires. We started a hip camp profile recently. We requested from admin that it be suspended but not deleted as of today. I feel this type of sleeping arrangement would be a service to the community as well as a small side income for us. Very small, by the way. Just a little extra. Many people are vacationing and living in Sprinter-like vans these days. These vehicles are carrying successful members of other communities. The roads are full of them these days. They usually have no intention to stay in a hotel or otherwise, so I don't feel that I'm, meddling with that sector of our economy. This is a chance to capture more overnighters due to more options. Our intentions only scratch the surface of possibilities. We all know the financial benefits that come with every overnight guest. Although this type of guest is self-sufficient, they still want to get out and stroll around the shopping areas. I feel that the city should not only allow but encourage private owners who are willing to share their space with this small part of the tourism influence in Mount Shasta. I believe the city needs to see this as a path towards getting ahead of the game in regards to tourism. Additionally, it should be seen from a city beautification standpoint, in that we are addressing the issue of mobile lodging street side and in parking lots. Having the existence of off-street parking would give our city the ability to help guide those who are violating street and occupancy codes to other safe options. As I see, opening our property to overnight stays should be seen as a service to the community and rewarded with a small deduction from city utility fees. For example, we were compensated when we lived in Portland $15 a month to mitigate stormwater into our property on French drain systems. That said, I feel the city needs to have every penny, so simply allowing us to exist with no fees would also be a nice compensation. In the future, we'll be able to see those effects, and hopefully in the future, those rewards can possibly follow. The city could also consider building a specific number of available spaces, or building to a specific number of available spaces, ensuring the community members that we won't become overrun with available spaces, if you will. Ultimately, I don't foresee many city members really wanting even to offer this service. Most people in the city don't even have that space or want to use their short driveway to do such things. And guests on these sites of hip camp don't really want short driveways out by the street. With the city support and management, you'll be able to monitor sanitation, fire, short driveways, public disturbance, and other concerns through a very easy, hopefully, I'm here to rally for that, permitting process. I think I have shown how the city has many reasons to jump on this opportunity. Please develop your plans to consider some of or all of my options so the city can prosper and thrive from the inevitable traffic that we are seeing. Also, consider a city-owned lot for this same goal, because y'all could be making some money too. Just a little on the side could probably get some places. Thanks for your service and time, everybody, from the city officials and council.
Thank you, Tim.
Would you like a copy of this by chance?
Love one. Thank you. Anybody else from the audience wish to speak? All right, seeing none, we will close the public comment and move on to council and staff comments, starting with Todd, city manager.
Okay, so I'm going to start on the development front. Many of you know that the landing's been tied up in a de facto development agreement. We have Pinsino Holdings that has been working on ways to finance the property. One of the things that has arisen is kind of a misunderstanding on Pinsino Holdings and our part in terms of the requirements of the Surplus Land Act, and that is any property that an entity like a city, or a federal agency, putting it up for sale in California, you have to, go through, again, surplus lands. You've got to declare it surplus, and once that property has been accepted by HCD, who has jurisdiction over this, then we need to go through an RFP process to see if affordable housing developers are out there that want to make a bid on the property. And Jeff's going to go into the Surplus Lands Act in a little bit more detail later tonight. But the long and the short of this is we signed an LOI, or a development agreement, with Pinsino, we're realizing that we're going to have at least a 6-month lag time, maybe a little bit longer. So they want to, sign a new development agreement, and they've also proposed that we do the following: we enter into a public-private partnership with them, where the money that would come in, the proceeds from the sale of the land, a little over $2 million. They would use, $1 million and change to help finance putting in the infrastructure on the site, with an agreement that they would pay the city back within a 2-year time frame. $1 million of those dollars would be available directly to the city up front for their expenses, whatever they want to use it for, and that would open the financial spigot. They could get the infrastructure in. They're getting their various holdings in place to develop, including either Hyatt or Marriott and the other programming that they've got planned. So something to consider. I'm working with terms with them, and I'll bring something back to council. In my opinion, I think it's a good way to help kickstart development. I think one of the things where we've had people kicking tires on the landing is who's going to pay for that infrastructure, and now we seem to have a way that we can pay for it. And kind of a segue to this is we had our third and final public hearing on the formation of our Enhanced Infrastructure Finance District, which is tax increment finance light in California. It's kind of a complicated instrument, but it essentially takes what we would normally, so we decide that a number of properties are in this district. It's been defined. And once the district is formed, that year that we open the district, all tax revenue coming to the city is frozen at that amount. And then over the life of the district, say it's 30 years, any increased increment in that that tax is used to do anything from support catalyzing projects that exponentially increase more, real estate tax and sales tax, maybe TOT, back with the city. But it allows us to do other things like fire mitigation, a whole host of stuff. If anybody's interested, they can call me at the office. I can fill them in. So we've satisfied our requirements. We've learned that there just learned that apparently the PFA should have passed a resolution, learned this after the fact, approving our infrastructure finance plan, so we have to call a special meeting to adopt that resolution, and then everything is sent to the state. Our EIFD is certified, and so what that does, once it is certified, it makes us more competitive for grants to develop these parcels, and for other grants, it provides some seed capital up front for certain projects. Business incubators, there's a bunch of stuff we can do, and then as this money, this increased tax revenue, snowballs over time, then we can do actual projects as we get near the end of the lifespan of the district. But it allows us to help out with development and other things that the city desperately needs to find funds for. So in this, potentially this EIFD could support a portion of a plan to pay for that infrastructure on the landing. Okay, I'll take a breath. There's one other development related. We had a meeting with a very prominent North State developer, K2 Development, two brothers in their 40s who have done a lot of the high rises and the mixed use development, the pedestrianization down in Reading and in Oroville, all kinds of projects. They're finishing up I think it's a 70-unit affordable housing construction along Shasta Dam Boulevard, along with ground floor retail. They're at a place where they're at a lull, and they're looking for projects up here. They've moved up here, so both brothers are up here part-time, and they brought along a gentleman who is from an international planning and development firm, architecture firm, that bought a house on Lake Siskiyou. He wants to do a project here as well. So we've got some world-class developers. They're looking for property and willing to, and want to work with the community because they're now residents to ensure that the kind of development that they propose is consistent with what the residents of Mount Shasta want. And, they've even agreed to work on any affordable housing with Pinsino Holdings because they don't seem to have a lot of appetite for building affordable. But it's more to come. It's just good news. It was a 3-hour meeting. It's a solid start. One last thing. One of the issues we've been dealing with for a while, we forced 2 properties into receivership, 2 delinquent properties, the Nest and the old hospital. The old hospital, of course, mysteriously combusted after it was taken away from the owner and was in the receiver's hands. And the issue has been, what do we do to clean this up? And again, as I mentioned at previous council meetings, we took this gentleman to Siskiyou County Court a number of times. He was found in contempt. He is forced to pay north of $800,000 for that contempt and for failure to secure the site and essentially cover the cost of cleanup, all legal fees. The residents up there are clearly distressed at the condition and concerns about, potentially toxic substances. We have been trying to get our folks that we work with to clean this up. We now have a demolition plan from, the environmental mitigation firm, and it's been approved by our building department. We're issuing demo permits, so we're just waiting to hear on the Bay Area Receivership Group and on when they're going to start demolition and removal of the debris up at the old hospital. That's what I've got.
Thank you. Any of the other department heads at that table? Anything to chime in? Go ahead, Ken.
One thing,
One item I'd like to touch on is the chlorination of the city water system. Starting back last week of November, we test the water every week. Starting the last week of November, we actually started getting positive readings for coliform in the water. Not E. coli, but coliform. As per state guidelines, we started chlorination. The levels of coliform have been very low. In discussions with the state Department of Drinking Water, it was agreed that we'll continue chlorination until we can get 3 weeks of negative readings. At this point, we're 2 weeks in, or we've had negative results for the last 2 weeks. This week, we sent samples down today. We should know by Wednesday. If that also comes back negative, that'll be 3 weeks, and we'll shut the chlorination off by the end of the week. As far as the cause, it's unknown. We're going to be doing some investigations when things dry up up above. I haven't been up this week, but we've had a snowpack up there for quite a while, and it's really stopped us from doing any kind of investigation. But that is on our agenda. And so keep your fingers crossed. We'll know Wednesday what the results are on today's testing.
Thank you, Ken. Anybody? Nothing till later? Okay. Fellow councilors, anything to comment on? Casey, anything from DC that you want to touch on?
No.
You're all
Good here
good?
for now. Thanks, John.
Now we move on to 6 committee updates. And Todd, anything with committee updates?
I don't. The DEAC is meeting tomorrow morning, and we'll have something at the next council meeting.
All right, we'll move on to consent agenda. City manager recommends approval of the following consent agenda items. All resolutions and ordinances on this agenda are added hereto, shall be introduced or adopted as applicable by title only, and the full reading therefore is hereby waived. A, approval of minutes, December 9th, 2024, regular meeting. B, the approval of disbursements, accounts payable 12/5, 12/18, and 12/31/24, total gross payroll and taxes for periods ending 12/8 and 12/22/2024. C, Police Department monthly report for December of 2024. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve consent agenda items A, B, and C by title only.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Still got to vote by roll call.
Oh, sorry, my mistake.
Councilwoman Clerk?
Aye.
Councilman Collins? Aye. Councilman Stacklet?
Aye.
Councilman Goddard?
Was that me? Sorry, aye.
Mayor Redmond?
Aye.
All ayes.
Motion moves. All right, now on to agenda item number 8, the plowing of Everett Memorial Highway. And Todd, you have the floor again.
Good evening, excuse me, good evening, council members. District 2 Supervisor Ed Valenzuela, starting my 5th term, which means I know all about snow plowing since I've been on the city council 8 years previous to my term as a city council member or supervisor. I brought with me Tom Deeney, who is our public works director. We did just have a meeting with the chamber here this past Thursday, was it? Yes, sir. Thursday, give an overview. That meeting was a delayed meeting. We had actually had a meeting scheduled for November, but the chamber had double booked her and we couldn't present. Every year, snow plowing comes up as an issue for me as a supervisor. Prior to Tom Deeney being on board, several public works directors past, Scott Sumner had brought forward plowing Everett Memorial up at the county, and there was a lot of people from South County because basically he was calling into question, how are we going to continue to maintain plowing Everett Memorial and Castle Lake? And Tom's going to give you the operational side to it. I want to give you more of the political side. We spend in excess of $200,000 on average to plow both roads, and we are the only one contributing to that. And you know, we're going to look into the future here. Something I need to put on your radar is called Secure Rural Schools funding. It comes up annually or every 3 years, depending how often they reauthorize it at the federal level. A lot of the funding goes to the schools, but it also goes to our public works. And if that funding ever goes away, we're going to be in serious trouble with how we're going to be able to maintain just public works services in general. Having said that, I'm positive, I'm confident my peers are still supportive of doing what we can to the extent that we can, but let's be realistic, there's not an unlimited pot of money there. And now costs keep going up. So one of the things that I've asked, Todd, thank you for bringing this forward. And as you know, and all the local people know, there's no newspaper anymore. It's hard to get the word out. Is just start creating dialogue. Tom Deeney's going to leave you with some business cards. You can always reach out to him. This year, and I will say, the heavy snow we had, in my book, is a good thing, right? I mean, we live on with the tourism and the ski park has to open up and all the things that are affected. We're going to give you, Tom's going to give you a presentation on the operational side. Just want you to know you can always reach out. There's always things working behind the scenes. We're up against it just like you are, trying to keep equipment on the road. We do have a new snowplow. Tom will get into that at this moment. So I want to thank you for your time. I'm going to turn it over to Tom Deeney, who is our Public Works Director. And let me just say this too, and I know you guys have your own Public Works crew. Our Public Works guys are doing a great job out there. They're working above and beyond, and they have been continually for all the time I've been on there. So, they're the unheralded heroes here. So, but we're here to answer any questions, and again, to continue with dialogue. Tom?
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Tom Deeney. I'm the Director of Public Works for Siskiyou County. Like Supervisor Valenzuela had mentioned, the plowing operations for Castle Lake and Everett Memorial Highway cost on average $200,000 per season that the county absorbs. One of the reasons why I'm here today is we had a big delay in getting the gates open up on Everett Memorial, and we were getting quite a bit of feedback from the county, from residents on that. The reason why it takes so long is Everett Memorial and Castle are the two of the roads that are absolutely the last ones that we're going to do. We have to do residential and commercial and high traffic areas first. We just have to. It's a public safety issue. In order to get up on Everett Memorial, which is particularly difficult to plow, we've got drifts up there. This year there was a rock slide in the middle of all the snow, which really hampers plow operations. And it's going to stay a low priority unless we get some help. We did just purchase a new snowplow this year. It was delivered just a few weeks ago, and that helps. But snow plowing is the hardest thing you can do with any public road or public works equipment. Everything on those break all the time. It's just the nature of the beast. You've got snow, you've got ice, you've got rocks, rotating equipment. Stuff's going to get overloaded, it's going to break. We do have a limited amount of spares on hand, but the problem is once we upgrade one piece of the equipment, right, now all the stress is going to go just down the line and break what's next. We did have a productive meeting with the Chamber of Commerce last week, talking about ideas for maybe coming up with additional funding. And I'm going to open it up for questions, but I did want to leave you with one more piece of information. The guys in this road district, right, that's stationed in Mount Shasta, put in an insane amount of hours trying to keep your guys' roads open, and most everybody's very grateful. But one good example would be the road foreman for this area. His name is Eric Freeman, and he worked 100 hours in a week, not in a pay period, in 7 days. And the 7 days included Thanksgiving. He put in 100 hours keeping the roads open here. So it's not that we're not working at it. It's just that there's so much else that has to come first. Does anybody have any questions?
First off, go Mel. We all love Eric Freeman, right?
Yes.
My question, I totally am following how when we get 4 feet of snow overnight, those things are last to happen. I am totally with you. That makes sense to me. What I'm trying to figure out is in the weeks following, when the biggest part of our tourism that doesn't go to the ski park goes to Castle Lake and Everett Memorial Bunny Flats, at what point, or what is a sufficient timeline that we could be telling our residents that is it a month after a big snowfall, or what can we do to help mitigate that?
So that's an excellent question, and it's somewhat difficult. So let me tell you about one of the mitigations that we're trying to put in place. I absolutely, and this is something I learned at the Chamber of Commerce meeting last week, I hate giving a date for either of those two roads to be open, because inevitably when I do, something goes wrong, and then my feet get held to the fire, and I hate that. But that's some information that we're going to start adding to the road closure page, which we're going to include both Castle and an Everett Memorial at the gates, an estimated date of opening. I'm probably going to go a few days long, just like at Chamber of Commerce meeting, I said Castle Lake wouldn't be open until tomorrow, but it's mostly open today. That's information that we could easily add to help smooth out the economic side of this. So that's what we're going to do. As far as reasonable expectation, there isn't. It's going to depend from situation to situation, because I might be dealing with drifts or a rock slide or broken equipment, all of which happen on a somewhat regular basis. The length of time depends on the severity of each one of those issues.
Casey, did you have something to?
I did, but I'm good for now.
Okay. Anybody else? Jeffrey, go ahead.
Hi, guys. Thanks for coming down. I appreciate you coming down. This kind of may be stating the obvious, but I thought it would be a good time to at least express myself on some expectations of greater desirability to have the road plowed versus times when it would be lesser desirable to have the roads plowed. We had Christmas this year on a Wednesday. There were a lot of people in town from the weekend before to the weekend after, and on the weekend before, including the Monday before Christmas, it was closed. That, for us, would be a time of high priority to get it open. I don't know if it was availability of the new plow wasn't here yet, and that may, I heard that was kind of part of the equation, but it's just wanted to express that we certainly understand that there's going to be times when, you just can't get it all done. And that's reasonable, that those things happen. I'm just trying to express the more obvious times of priority when we would request, anyway, that we move up the priority scale when we have so many tourists in town, or we're hoping to have so many tourists in town. That's all.
Yes, sir, and we're sensitive to that. I understand for long weekends, Christmas break, all that's whenever I want to be up on the mountain snowboarding is when everybody else is going to want to be up.
Right.
So we were having equipment issues, and we actually tried to clear the road the weekend before using nothing but a road grader, but we were hung up for so long it turned into solid ice and the grader slid off the roads, and then I had a recovery operation on top of trying to plow. So yes, we understand that, and I wish we could have gotten it open a little sooner, but it was like a Herculean effort just to get it open right before Christmas.
Well, thank you.
So if I could just add real quick. Part of my goal is to come up with some creative ideas to do it. It can't be the county solely alone funding this. We got to get the Forest Service involved. We got to get the business community involved. I need the city to be involved. If it's a priority, I would be happy to have you guys do it, and we give you the money. To me, anything and everything is on the table. What I don't want is people keep pointing to the county, because, again, I hate to say that we're tapped out, but there's a limit to what we can do. Never mind that we have trouble trying to find workers these days. These guys are working too many hours, quite honestly. I will say this, that usually we're dealing with this in the beginning of a season. It usually smooths out once we get it to a point where we can maintain it. This is where I need the Forest Service to step up. Jesse Hansen with SOAR is trying to organize a collective meeting with the county, city, forest service, those kind of things. And again, anything for me is on the table. Otherwise, every year I'm going to come back and just tell you we're doing the best we can, and it's cost us $225 next year, or whatever it is. And again, it's just a capacity, resource-based issue that we have to deal with.
Question for you, Ed.
Yeah.
I was at that meeting, the chamber meeting, so thanks for coming and you know, staying at all again. You mentioned the amount of money spent, and obviously that varies from year to year pretty drastically depending on our snowpack. In your estimation, what amount of money in excess of what the county pays, like if a source of money was to come onto the table, what amount would have a significant impact on actually getting the road open faster?
Yeah, you know what? That's a good question. I think it has to be vetted. I wouldn't know off the top of my head. I'll tell you what I do know, and Tom will mention. I'll bring him back up to talk about this. He's looking at buying a bigger plow that, you know, but that's a serious investment. I think we spent $600,000 for this new plow that we bought. I mean, that's just $600,000. This isn't sitting there. You know, it's not like we have a money tree, right? Maybe the community, maybe the, you know, and let's not go to the grant thing. There's no grants out there for this kind of thing. We got to collectively come up with a place, to, you know, a way to do it. Again, any idea, I'm looking for ideas here, because it can't just be me with the idea. I support this. I know how critically important it is. District 2 is the biggest TOT generator for Siskiyou County. Now, by city council days, TOT and sales tax is the biggest driver for your budget. So I know how critically important it is, but I would argue there's no skin in the game from the city at this moment in time. How can you help us? Can we set up a JPA and get someone, an entity solely dedicated, work contributing? I mean, again, I'm looking for creative ideas here, because I know how important it is.
Sorry. With all due respect, the county owns the road.
Well, here's my deal with that. I think that the county got into. We would never do that at this moment in time. This is something I learned from Ken Kellogg at the chamber event. We have a maintenance agreement. We do not want to own that road, but we do it because we've already are into it. And I think that developed when they had this old ski bowl up there. That's how this came about, because the Forest Service doesn't have plows. So I think it was done in that sense. Todd, we're still plowing the road. I'm looking for the city to contribute somehow, some way. And what that is, I don't know.
What are we asking from the county to upkeep on our roads? If what happens up there fails, who's going to be impacted? The city of Mount Shasta, but it's going to be the county as well. We're the engine of Siskiyou County. So stop. It's your road.
Todd, I'm here to give it. Hey, what we're trying to do, we're giving our best shot. We're spending the money. We haven't stopped. Looking for support.
On that note, just, I mean, say an entity were to be able to find money, like, would $10,000 make a significant impact? Would $20,000 in a season make a significant impact?
Counselor, in our meeting last week, I said I would work on those numbers, and I have. My finance staff is working on that. I don't have an answer yet, and I'm working on several different scenarios that we can work our way through, talking about what it would take to move the needle. So I understand your question, and we're working on it. Okay. When I have an answer, I'll come back.
And just on the top of my head, it's got to be a significant amount, because if it was 10,000, we could find that right now, right between somewhere. But it's just not something. This is something we just don't budget for in a sense.
Okay, so are we talking about buying a piece of equipment and then hiring 2 more people or 1 more person? What, do you have any grip on?
Councilmember Staff, it's on the table. Any idea is up on the table. This is where we are.
What do you think it's going to take? Is it going to take 1 more person, staff-wise, which is $100,000 probably, right, with benefits and everything?
Well,
I think $10,000 to $20,000 isn't going to do it.
So there's several different scenarios that we could talk about, right? One scenario would be the city hires an extra help plow operator, and that operator would be on call and be paid for the hours that they want to spend up on the mountain when I don't need that plow somewhere else. That's a scenario. What the cost would be on that, I don't know. Another scenario would be we buy a larger dedicated machine and the city pitches in. Now, we would buy one of those machines used because they're way over $1 million a pop, but they're available, and the county has just changed its procurement policy to allow us to chase used equipment. And then the other option would be, we hire a full-time guy, but that doesn't make fiscal sense for the city, and it doesn't make fiscal sense for us. We're talking about a guy that we need 6, 7, 8 times a year. So the question would then come down to, is it cheaper to hire an extra help person and have them use either our backup plow, right, or the main plow if it's not being used to run that on their own? Or do we spend the money, invest in another piece of equipment that will allow the county to do it all in one shot faster? What those numbers are, I don't know, because we've only been talking about this for a few days.
So if I could just add real quick, so Jesse Hansen is setting up a meeting, hopefully with everyone, all the players, if you will, including the Forest Service, I might add, and these are the kind of things that we want to put on the table and vet and discuss. It's not going to change this year. I'm looking for improvement for the next year. I got to give my Public Works Director credit because he went out and bought a brand new piece of equipment that gets beat up. And so, sorry, Mr. Uhas, I'm not trying to be an anti-county, we got to partner together to make a bigger difference. Again, I've been in this community too long not to know the importance of tourism, snow, plow, and all the things that are collective in that point. So when we talk about things, asking, and we will fact find and cost, but it's going to be more of a cost. And again, ideas, they all got to be vetted. I'm open to any and all ideas.
Ed, I heard you say we don't have any skin in the game. We're losing $500,000 to $700,000 a year every year for the past 3 years, and TOT is going down with a 20% increase in the amount of tax because we raised it from 10 to 12% a year ago, and we're still down. I'm not trying to say that all of this is because the road isn't plowed going up to Castle Lake or Bunny Flat, but what I am trying to say is we got good skin in the game, and unfortunately, in that orientation, we both lose because you collect TOT out of that as well as us, and we're both losing.
So you remember that our TOT is the county piece to it. It's not the city. Yours is just the city TOT. They're two separate pots, right?
Right. That's
okay.
Correct.
And I'm not trying to say that you don't have skin in the game. I'm just saying, from a fiscal, we're putting $200,000. I don't see the city putting any money into it from our perspective. There's all the goodwill and all the other things that are ancillary to this. And I don't want to get caught up to that. And maybe I use a bad terminology. I'm telling you that we're putting up $200,000, and we're not getting assistance from anyone. And I'm pointing the finger at the Forest Service, to be honest with you. Well, because they're the entity that should be helping and contributing.
And I would agree with you, Ed. So what I'd like to shift the dialogue to is it's not the city versus the county.
It never should be.
Well, it seems like that's what we're feeling here. And I'm going, I don't think that's going to be productive.
No, it isn't. But I also hear when the city's pointing to the county, what's the county doing? Get off their ass.
Well, it's not get off your ass. We understand. We live with people that work hard, and your folks work hard. We know that.
Well,
but
again,
on the other hand, there is an immutable bottom line, which is it's your road. And if you want to get help plowing those roads, and the Forest Service is the way to go, and I would agree with you. Let's have that dialogue.
So this is where, and this is, again, education here. We have a maintenance agreement for that road. In my mind, that's a Forest Service road. The county doesn't have why would we have a road up to the mountain? I don't get that. I think it developed and happened over time, and we're doing the best we can. So let's digress. It's not us, them, county, whatever. It's, again, trying to move forward, move the needle. I will apologize if it's you guys don't have skin in the game, but I don't see it. We're putting $200,000 plowing, and our guys are tapped out, and we're doing the best we can. So any creative ideas, let's put them on the table, and let's move forward to make it better.
Well, let me be very clear about something then. Given that we are losing 500 3 years ago, 600 last year, and on track to lose 700 this year, the skin in the cash isn't coming from us.
You're not making that? Is that what you're telling? Because you're not losing it.
Our budget is in deficit.
Oh, we're in the same position. County is in the same spot.
Right, but when you come, then you well know, as we do, that when you come to the end of a reserve, getting down below state standards, you can't dig any more into it.
We don't have a reserve. We have to have a balanced budget.
And so what you're telling me is you don't have any more money, you can't throw anything at it. What we're telling you is we don't have any more money, we can't throw anything at it. So let's kind of move past that. If you can't, you can't.
Councilmember Collins, I totally agree. And maybe it's you provide a worker. You know, again, let's sit down at the table. Let's come up with a better plan than what we're doing.
Okay, thanks.
I'm going to interrupt you. I think we're getting a little bit round and round with the conversation. I'd like to open this up to public comment real quick, and then we can continue.
That's right, we didn't do that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Go ahead.
My name is Danny Williams, and I just really wanted to say that I appreciate the fact that the council and the county are trying to meet and really find solutions to this road situation, and that I would really encourage us all to look at it as really like a long-term process and be reaching for the solutions that can be built for a long-term maintenance of this road. And I think what, as a community member, is new for me is the realization that, you know, my assumption has always been, like we've spoken, this is a county road, and it, since the 70s, has been plowed, and it's just new to experience that it's not happening. And I'm learning that this funding issue is it's county, it's city, it's state. We're all in a situation where there's not a lot of funding from where it traditionally came from. And I'm just hoping we can find solutions to generate funding rather than just stand here and say it's your job or your job or your job. But what can we do to really create a new source of funding so that we can have these roads open? Thank you all.
Thank you, Dan. Anybody else out there? Going up.
Good evening, council members and staff. I'm Renee Casterline with Siskiyou Outdoor Recreation Alliance. Justy would be here this evening, but she is out of town. Before I make a comment, though, I want to invite us all to take a breath. Because having these roads open is near and dear to a lot of us for different reasons. And as you all know, I hope you all know, SORA has been working on the South Siskiyou Sustainable Recreation Plan, which has, over the course of the last year, had us bring a lot of different groups of people together to sit down and discuss topics that are important. And the opening of the roads is one of those topics. And we've had business owners coming together. As you heard from Supervisor Valenzuela, we're working on getting another group together with jurisdictions and the key players when it comes to plowing the road. I want to also invite us all to look at this as a problem that not one or two or three entities will solve, and that we don't see this as something that has to land only on the shoulders of jurisdictions. Our businesses in town that are affected directly and also sort of indirectly by the roads being closed, they're motivated to be involved. They're motivated to think about solutions. They're ready to get creative. And as we've seen from so many other recreation-based and community-based projects in this town, we can get a lot more done together than we can working individually. So Justy asked me to come tonight and just encourage you all to think of this as something that we can look at together, and to hear from us that SORA is really invested in being part of this, finding solutions to this, and really looking at it in a long-term format. So we are working together to pull together that next meeting for road user groups and to really start thinking outside of the box. You all are welcome to reach out to me or to Justy at any time, and we look forward to being part of the conversation. Thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
I'm here, I might as well.
Go ahead, Tim.
I'm sure I could think of something. I didn't write this down, so I could potentially digress, like, way out of the ballpark here, but I'll try to keep it together. I think that, I mean, I'm one of the people that has actually called Tom in the beginning of the season and expressed concern for why we just went through Thanksgiving weekend without the Everett Open. We've already kind of gotten used to the castle, like almost never getting done because we just got to wait in line for the Everett to get done. But I guess point is here, you know, no one's really like coming up with any ideas to come up with large amounts of money, except for during that meeting, I did hear that maybe a formation of a not-for-profit, because not-for-profits, what do? They chase money, you know. There could potentially be money out there for snow plowing or recreation or tying it in with schools like was mentioned before. But ultimately, I think that the question of kind of pay to play comes up. You know, there used to be money for recreation in the government that people could get. There used to be money in the Forest Service. There used to be money everywhere to work on the woods and to do things. And now all those fundings have been cut. So it's kind of like if you're not willing to turn what you're struggling with into a business, then it's probably going to sit there and get closed. Because some money has to come in somewhere. So instead of, you know, maybe a not-for-profit would be good, but also I would encourage the city and take charge of this and call it, you know, find ways to call that a city road, because it comes right into the middle of Mount Shasta. It's our road, you know, it's a Mount Shasta city road. It's not a road that goes down into McLeod or Weed. We're the ones who benefit the greatest from it, and we should take a part of that. I do agree it's a county road, and that's the phone number I call when I'm cranky. But nevertheless, I think that pay to play is something that has been researched. I know it's been researched. Pay to play, essentially, like if you're going into places that we love and you're using that area, you should be helping pay for that person to come and empty those trash cans and to help keep this area green, blue, whatever, you know. Same concerns for Lake Siskiyou, all the precious places. Like, I think that ultimately locals shouldn't have to pay to go out to these places, but we should also maybe agree to pay a little bit of extra tax to encourage that and let the outside tourism industry that wants to be here and enjoy this place, let them pay for these improvements. Let them pay $5 to go up the Everett or $5 to go up Castle or $15 for a pass for the weekend. Something along those lines. I think that money would add up. And what I'm hearing is it's about $200,000. I don't know why that number wasn't just thrown out as like, this is what we need as a city to run that for a year. My guess is probably we need about $200,000 a year or somewhere in that ballpark to have a plow and to keep it functioning. I also think, and additionally, that possibly a group of enthusiasts in the area would volunteer to be volunteer plow people to work as a group to get that thing plowed instead of sending one person up there for 100 hours. Maybe have a group of people do it, and maybe the city or the county could pay for their certifications along the way to make sure that they're able to do that job. Is that 3 minutes?
Yes, 3 minutes.
Oh, cool. All right.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
Your name, please?
Tim Belton.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else in the audience want to comment? Seeing none, we will close that, bring it back to council if there's anything we want to say, or are we just ready to move on and wait till this meeting to come up with ideas? Go ahead.
Again, the gist of this was just a presentation where we are as a county, what we're up against. There's going to be a future meeting. Just guys, every idea that you can come up with, we put it on the table, and we're just going to try to move.
Do we have a date for the meeting yet?
I think tentatively February 12th.
February 12th?
Yeah. Jesse Hansen will send out some invites on that.
Go ahead.
Has anyone looked at private contractors to do the job?
John,
so contractors that are capable of doing this?
None of this has been looked at. The county has always just taken the responsibility of doing the best they can with what we have.
Okay.
And all I'm saying is that we're basically are tapped out. If it's not to your satisfaction, we're doing the best we can, and we're spending the money. It's not like we're not doing that.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so what do we do to move it forward? And again, I can't reiterate enough.
Like
any ideas, anything is on the table for me.
To me, it sounds like we need a funding source for this and a number of other things. But
and hopefully in that February 12th, we'll come up with, by here and then, we'll come up with some ideas. I know they talk about a fee and all that kind of stuff. That, you know, I was never willy-nilly about that, but it goes to the voters anyway. So it's not what I think, it's what people want. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Ed. Appreciate it. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. Sorry, Renee, it's already passed. All right, so then we will close that agenda item and move on to number 9, proposal for engineering services, the Title 22 report. And Ken Kellogg will present that one.
Mayor and City Council. The California Central Valley Water Board notified the city that it is required to have an approved Title 22 engineering report describing how the city treats and distributes treated and recycled effluent. We have been using recycled effluent to irrigate the golf course for over 20 years without a Title 22 report. Now, however, under the new waste discharge requirement that came along with the new wastewater treatment plant, it has been made a requirement. The report will need to be submitted and approved by the water board before the city can continue to discharge to the golf course this coming season. The city requested bids from 4 engineering firms to generate the report. 2 firms responded, SHN Engineering out of Klamath Falls and Pace Engineering out of Reading. Pace submitted the low bid of $45,000. It is recommended that the City Council approve the expenditure of $45,000 to Pace to produce the Title 22 engineering report detailing the production and distribution of tertiary treatment effluent for recycled use on the Mount Shasta Resort Golf Course for irrigation purposes. It is in the best interest of the city and is reasonable in cost given the requirements.
To the chair.
Go ahead.
Is this a one-time report, or is this going to be an annual requirement?
One-time report.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Anybody else? Go ahead.
And it's required, so we have to do this, correct?
Yes.
I have a question.
Casey, go ahead.
Was this known, is this a new requirement from
Yes.
the?
It
is, okay.
It's a new requirement that came along with a new wastewater discharge permit that we got when they approved the new wastewater treatment plant.
Is this something that should have been handled by Pace when they originally bid to do the plant anyway?
No.
Okay.
We did not know at that point that they were going to put this in the new discharge permit.
Got it.
Ken, is this a wastewater enterprise fund withdrawal versus general fund?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That helps. That helps out a lot. Okay, any other questions? No? All right, we'll open this up to the public for comment. Anybody 3 minutes on this? All right, seeing none, we will close it and bring it back to council. Anybody discussion, anything else on this? Motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion in a second. So, just in case anyone was worried, it looks like the sewer fund is going to run a surplus of $500,000. So, we can handle this. All right. Any more debate? No? Okay. So I'll move the City Council Resolution number CCR-25-01. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Mount Shasta approving budget adjustment for state-required Title 22 engineering report in the wastewater treatment plant fund for $45,000.
Got a second?
Second.
All right, we'll do a roll call on that, please.
Councilwoman Clerk? Aye. Councilman Collings?
Aye.
Councilman Stackfleck?
Aye.
Councilman Globman?
Aye.
Mayor John?
Aye.
All ayes.
Hey, Handsome John works too, just so you know. All right, moving on, number 10. Recommendation of award for the Mount Shasta Boulevard Rehabilitation Project, and again, Ken Kellogg for this presentation.
Stand by, please. Finding my staff report. Do you have a copy of that? Is it here? No. This one's a little easier to take. Thank you. Mayor and City Council, this is this is a recommendation of award for the Mount Shasta Boulevard Rehabilitation Project. The City of Mount Shasta received STIP funding in the amount of $271,000 for the rehabilitation of the asphalt pavement on a section of North Mount Shasta Boulevard, basically between Ski Village Drive and Spring Hill Drive. Pace Engineering prepared a design, plans, and construction contract for the project and conducted a bid opening on December 18th, 2024. Low bid was ST Roads for the amount of $212,175, about $60,000 less than the available funds. It is recommended that the City Council approve the award of the contract to ST Roads for the amount of $212,175. It will result in an improved and safer driving surface and will prolong the service life of the roadway in question. Any questions?
Any questions? Pretty straightforward. All right, no questions. We'll open this up to public comment. If anybody else in the audience, seeing none, we will close public comment. Do we have a motion?
Further debate? Okay. Move to approve the award of a contract to ST Roads to perform asphalt overlay work on North Mount Shasta Boulevard between Ski Village Drive and Spring Hill Drive.
Second.
All right, take a roll call, please.
Councilwoman Klur. Aye. Councilman Collings.
Aye.
Councilman Stackflet.
Aye.
Councilman Globman.
Aye.
Mayor Redmond.
Aye.
All ayes.
All right. Moving on. Number 11, consideration of granting 3 easements to Pacific Corps for wildlife mitigation. And Todd Uhas will present this one.
Yes, so I was contacted by Pacific Power about acquiring 3 easements for fire mitigation work. They want to bury conduits and cable at 3 locations where there are overhead lines. And one of them overlaps with an existing 10-foot easement. The other 2 are adjacent to that 10-foot easement. And, you know, in all, it's a little over 1,000 square feet. It, I think, is good for us in terms of, you know, things that potentially could catch fire being underground. And they would pay us the nominal typical fee for administrative costs of $1,000 for granting these perpetual easements.
Thank you, Todd. Any questions? Go ahead, Jeffrey.
City manager, any chance that amount of money they would pay us could go up to $200,000 a year? Because we kind of.
Well, I could see if they've started printing money. They may have. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. Anybody else? John? No? Casey?
Yeah, I do have a question. Is there any chance that in like subsequent years, the administrative cost to the city goes up for any reason, and this $1,000 wouldn't cover that? Is there any sort of guarantee that like any future cost would be covered? I don't know if they would or not.
It is a couple things. I don't see there being additional administrative cost. Once this equipment is buried, it stays buried. They might need to do some maintenance on it, but with that perpetual easement, they're allowed to go in and do that work. You know, for them, it's a benefit because they're not paying out potentially insurance claims related to debris falling on those lines and on that conduit. But, you know, for the city, it potentially, you know, it's a small chance, but these 3 locations may be where a fire starts that could be catastrophic for the city. So I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, open this up to public comment. Seeing no takers, we will close public comment. Do we got a motion?
Yeah, I'll move to approve Resolution CCR-24-02, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mount Shasta, California, authorizing the perpetual utility easements to Pacific Corp at 3 city-owned locations mentioned below.
Second.
Get a roll call again.
Councilwoman Klur,
Aye.
Councilman Collings,
Aye.
Councilman Stackflet,
Aye.
Councilman Globman,
Aye.
and Mayor Redmond.
Aye.
All ayes.
All right. All right, moving on to number 12, fiscal year 24-25 budget review that we are all so excited about. All right, Melissa, you have the floor.
She's going to the podium.
Yes, this is serious.
Thank you, Mayor Redmond and City Council members. I haven't done this before here, so I'm going to give this a stab at how to make the PowerPoint work. Thank you. Okay, I'm here to do the mid-year review of the 24-25 adopted budget. I will start this off by trying to figure this clicker out. Which do I? Got it. So what I did to start the review of the current year adopted budget is I went back and looked at 5 years of prior information that was provided with our financial audited numbers. So I've given that five-year history there. We just got the final numbers for 23-24. And then I included the adopted budget from the City Council for 24-25. The revenue numbers for 24-25 are roughly $6.4 million adopted in the budget. The expenses similar with a deficit of about $52,000. I'll note that in the prior 2 years, we had a deficit spending of $600,000 in 2023 and $768,000 in 23-24. I included the fund balance numbers there. The actuals come from the audited financial numbers, and adopted budget is a little bit lower because there's a equipment reserve fund that's included in the financial audited numbers. Is that being projected here too? Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's down here as well. So that's the past numbers for the past 5 years. And then I went into looking at what was adopted versus where we currently are. So our sales tax is down a bit. We had budgeted $1.7 million. The sales tax comes in arrears, so we've collected July through October, and that number is around $532,000, which is a little bit lower than it has been for the projection. And looking at the history, I have a little bit more information about that. The TOT was budgeted about $1.4 million. That was a increase, I believe, because it went from the 10% to the 12%. But that number is pretty high, and I'm not sure that I'll show you that I'm not sure we could get to that number. We collected some of the money for the first the first quarter's collected. The second quarter we're collecting that now in January, so it will get closer to 50%. But I think it'll be a little bit more like 45% where we'll end up. And then we have a grant. That's a reimbursement-based grant, so we got to spend the money to get the money. Was projected at $730,000. There was some one-time capital expenses in that adopted budget there. The property tax is up just a little bit. We've got transfers that will occur between enterprise funds to support some of the activities that are done in the general fund. We've got vehicle license fees. Those haven't come in yet. They come in I think it's, I looked back, it's February and June. So we'll see those. We don't have a projection yet. Business licenses is down a bit. I'm not sure where the business license revenue at 150 came from. It hasn't been that in the past. It's only been roughly about $85,000. That's the annual fee for the businesses to get their license to operate. So that number is projected to be down. And then we get a reimbursement from the fire district. They pay us the same amount every quarter, so that's pretty, comes in just the way we budget it. And then there's some other revenues that come in, and they're basically on track with the adopted budget. This is a lot of details. Sorry, I just wanted to show that I had kind of gone back to look at the history of sales tax to come up with my proposal going forward. So the black lines in the graph is what we've collected to date for the year, and the red lines in the graph are what I'm projecting. And I just wanted to kind of show that I'm in the middle of the line. I'm not being super conservative, but I'm not, going out and trying to come up with revenue that may not be there. So then I looked at the transient occupancy tax, and I'm not super familiar with this from my past, but so I checked into that number from 2019 to 2020. The obvious that I wasn't aware of is that was COVID, and there wasn't a lot of travel probably here into town, so that number was down. But the rest of the numbers there are pretty flat. And then you guys added the 2%, so we're projecting that to go up some. There's kind of the trend for sales tax and TOTs. You can see the sales tax is trending down a little bit. TOT not. So we'll see how that looks in 24-25. Here's some the same revenues that I kind of spoke about already, and what my adjusted projection would be. I kind of talked about how I would get there, how I got there for sales tax, looking at the history. That's a projection of about $200,000 less, 189. The transient occupancy tax, again, I'm not sure we would have gotten to 1.4, so I think even if transient occupancy is up a little bit, we're at 1.3 is a pretty good number. Again, Prop 64 grant, that we just get what we spend, and we had a little bit of savings in the system that we implemented this year, the RIM system, so that's going to be down a little bit. Property taxes are up a little from the 50%, so I increased that just a little bit. Again, the business licenses, I don't know how the 281 would have been derived, because 150 of that was business license, and we just haven't ever been there. So that's the 6.4 that was adopted for 24-25, and then my adjusted, which is about a $400,000 revenue reduction. And then I did the same for the expenses, not quite as much detail here that I have on the revenue side as on the revenue side, but the basic difference is about $227,000. And I did a little shift with the unfunded actuarial liability. Instead of it being in just an other number, I allocated that over to the departments that have staff in those departments. So that's why the other shows a negative, but that amount is actually distributed up into the programs that have staff in them. The main difference in the $227,000 is a little bit of salary change, about $25,000. There's an additional expense in the category of attorney fees. As you know, we're in negotiations, and we've hired a contractor to provide that service for us. And there's an increase in insurance expenses that was probably unknown when the budget was put together. That happens. And then the rest of that is made up by the expense for our new financial software, Springbrook, which you guys had budgeted in the prior year, but we aren't actually implementing until this year. And I don't know if there was budget put in there for that, but most of the expense of that system is actually going to be incurred in this fiscal year. So I don't have the details of what was budgeted there, but I'm expecting that to be a pretty good number, because we're implementing most of the modules this year. There's a little bit of an increase in our Apex, and I think that has to do with moving from the cloud to server-based services for our systems, I think mostly on the police side, but it might be for the whole city. I'm not as familiar with that, but there's an increase in that. We're spending around $13,000 on Apex a month. And then we purchased a new software for TOT. And again, I don't know if that number was budgeted in there, but the expense is there now. And so that's, I base this on what we've spent to date as my projection. So that gets us, again, this is basically the same graph that I had before, only I added the adjusted budget there on the end, which shows us had been adopted at a $52,000 deficit, and I'm projecting that to be around $688,000, which does dip into our fund balance and our reserves. So we will probably be around a 10 to 12% reserve as a percentage of operating budget for the general fund. And then I did just a quick little bit on the enterprise funds. They're pretty easy to project. You guys' the user fees are, they're set. So prior year, looking at what was budgeted, pretty much the same, and looking at what we have year to date is pretty much right on target. So there's no big differences there. So happy to answer questions if I can. This is new to me.
John, anything? Casey, you there? Got anything?
No, I do not at this time.
Go ahead,
Thank you.
Jeff.
Melissa, because we had the chance to talk with you earlier, I just want to say thank you for boiling it down for the big picture, not just for us, but for the city as a whole, who is trying to understand what goes on here, why it is the way it is. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you.
Okay, no other questions. We'll open it up to public comment. Anybody wants to chime in? Nobody? All right, close it. Okay, come back to council, and that was it, just the update. Yeah, exactly. So,
All right, thank you.
No, thank you, Melissa. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to number 13, the budget adjustment for the COPS funding. And that will be Melissa again.
So we have a COPS fund, Fund 65, and we basically budget what we got the prior year. And from what I understand, every year there's some additional funds that have traditionally come to the city through that allocation process from the county. And this year, I got an email from the county, and the budget increase is $29,663. And in order to send those funds to us, they need us to adopt a resolution.
Any questions? Casey, anything?
No, that seems pretty straightforward.
John, okay. All right, we'll open this up to the public. And just like that, we will close it. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve, unless we have questions, debate? Okay.
No.
Move to approve resolution CCR-25-03, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mount Shasta approving budget adjustment number 2024-2025-03, appropriating $29,663 from the COPS fund for purchases.
All right, get a roll call on that, please.
Councilwoman Klur.
Aye.
Councilman Collings.
Aye.
Councilman Stackflet. Aye. Councilman Globman.
Aye.
Mayor Redmond.
Aye. Okay.
All ayes.
Moving on to number 14 for Melissa again, the closeout of Fund 90, the Public Works Reimbursements Project.
Yes, so one of the things I've been doing with the auditor is looking at the various funds that we have on our financial statement. And this was one that has some funds in it that have not been used for, I went back as far as I could, 20 years in the prior financial accounting software. and I couldn't see where any expenses had incurred or additional revenue. So we talked about that, and the recommendation was to close out that fund and move it into Fund 12, which is an equipment reserve fund. The title of the fund was Public Works Reimbursable Projects. So I talked that over with Ken, and I think we're in agreement that we would like to just move those funds into the equipment reserve.
Excellent idea. Any questions from anybody on this one? No? Oh, good. Casey, you're good? Okay. We'll open this up to public comment. And we will close it just like that. Do we have a motion?
All right, this is not in resolution form, so I will move to approve the closing out of Fund 90, Public Works Reimbursable Projects, and to reallocate the $19,532.60 cash on hand balance to Fund 12, Equipment Replacement Reserve.
Second.
All right, get a roll call one more time.
Councilwoman Klur.
Aye.
Councilman Collings.
Aye.
Councilman Stackflet.
Aye.
Councilman Globman.
Aye.
Mayor Redmond.
Aye.
All ayes.
All ayes. Okay, moving right along. Number 15, finally up for you guys. All right. Chamber of Commerce request for funds, and Todd, you have the floor.
Okay, so the chamber last year had come before council and had asked for an additional $15,000 in operating revenue last year. And the chamber contacted me about that $15,000 with, the thinking was that was an approval in perpetuity. We went back into the notes from last year, and it was a one-time increase. So the chamber is here, looking for again that increase, and with the intent of making this permanent.
I'm Casey Kluwer. I'm the president of the Chamber of Commerce Board, and I think there was a little bit that got lost in translation on our ask. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of history and slightly adjust our ask. So for the fiscal year 23-24, it cost a total of $127,227.47 to run the visitor center. We had a net income of $637.15. And so the city has funded us historically either a percentage of TOT or $65,000. And so going back to approximately 2008, it was a percentage of TOT or $65,000. And then moving to 2016, it was just adjusted to a flat $65,000 fee. And so what I did was I looked at what the inflation was based on the CPI from $65,000 in 2008 and what that would equal to today, and that's approximately $95,000. So what that changes our ask to is actually an additional $15,000 from that ask, so a $30,000 total increase from the city. So instead of $65,000, it would be $95,000. A little tough coming in to ask that after looking at the budget. I'm like, okay. And so there has been question in the past about whether or not it's necessary for the visitor center to be open. And so foot traffic wise, about 5,000 people per year walk through the doors of our visitor center. The Visitor Center and Chamber of Commerce in conjunction participate in major events that contribute directly to TOT, specifically the 4th of July, which brings in 3,000 to 5,000 people from out of town, as well as the Winter Magic Festival, which we tracked about 9,000 people downtown on the 300 block during this year's festival. So I think we're just running into the same issue that everybody else is running into. We need more funding, and so we're hoping that we can continue working together.
Would you say that the number of visitors has remained approximately the same, or is there a fluctuation in people coming in through the door?
That's a great question. I actually have our executive director here, and she would probably be the better person to answer that.
So during COVID, of course, everything slowed down. So we're slowly coming back up. We aren't where we were before COVID, but we are higher than we were last year.
Casey, any questions? Yeah. We'll open it up to public comment. Just like that, we're done again. All right, bring it back. Discussion?
To the chair?
Go ahead.
I'd just like to open discussion by saying that I've always been pro-chamber. I think that what they do for our business community and our tourism is vital to the continuation of our messaging, which is that we want to see a healthy fund balance, which comes from higher TOT and higher sales tax. And I think with the biggest events put on in, I dare to say, the North State, I'm not sure about that fact, so don't fact check me. I am in full support and wish to continue our wonderful relationship with the chamber.
So the $65,000 is factored into the budget. Have we paid it? I don't remember signing a check, but.
Sorry. They bill us quarterly.
Okay.
And so we have paid one quarter. I'm expecting a bill for the second quarter, which would be at this point at the $65,000 unless you approve additional funding.
And it has to come from the general fund versus something like DIAC or?
I would need to ask that question, but my guess would be general fund.
That would, what you would say, Todd, from the general fund as well?
Yes.
Yes.
This is a tough one. I don't need to rehash our budgets and our financial situation. We've done a pretty good job of laying out where we are, which is really not good. Unquestionably, I would vote no for a $30,000 increase on top of $65,000. We're starting to spend money more electronically, working with social media, and have a contract with folks to do that, to reach people, because obviously supporting tourism is an important element of what we want to do. I see things are falling apart. The gentleman, where are you coming from on this? Tessa's made herself clear. Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify one more thing. So Ascension, the Josh Thomas effort, that's paid separately, right?
Yeah, I was actually just.
We don't pay that through the chamber, right?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that contract did come through us this year. I believe it's $9,600 a quarter, and that was not budgeted. So
What?
that had not been budgeted.
The contract for Ascension, we proved that.
Well, it was not in the adopted budget that I could tell.
Should have been.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
The whole thing or the increase? Because there were two parts. It was about $3,200 or so, and then we were going to bump it up $600.
Well, he went from 32,000 to 39. Yeah, we approved that in good time.
Yeah.
So you're seeing that it's not,
It would-
but to the extent that it was approved, are we paying that through, in other words, we pay the chambers and they pay him, or do we pay it directly?
We pay him directly. Mhm.
So my question stands. Where-
I mean, there's the relationship aspect, as it's been mentioned here. I guess I'd move for 7,500. It's 15,000 is the ask, not 30, right? 30. Oh, no.
Well, I'm clear. You want a $30,000 increase?
I'd be willing to meet you guys where you feel comfortable.
So the original ask was 15,000. Now you're asking for 30,000?
So it was 30,000, it was 15,000 last year, it was 30,000 this year, but I think there's just a little bit that got lost in translation, and so what got on your guys' agenda was 15,000.
So-
However, I'm just gonna say that, take what we can get, so.
So, yeah, 15,000 last year to some, calculation issues, and so the new ask is $30,000. But one thing that was explicitly explained, that adjusted for inflation, it should be $90,000. It's in real dollar terms, and that's a good point, but in real dollar terms, we're tanking, so I don't know what to say. I'm willing to go something like 7,500, 8, maybe 10,000 at most, but that's just a goodwill gesture. I don't know that that's fiscally responsible.
And one more time, this is not in our budget.
This is not in the budget. Whatever is approved will go directly to the deficit.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with John on about 10,000 on this one. At least just for this year, till we can get some numbers, hopefully with closed session talks and everything else to get things turned around. Then next year would be a better time.
Just
timing
go ahead,
would be
Bob.
better next year.
So as a side, hold on a second, Casey. So as a side comment, it sounds like we have to clearly budget for things like Ascension, the chamber, because there, as it's been stated, there seems to be some disclarity as to whether these expenditures have been budgeted. So anyhow, that's just an aside. Go ahead, Casey.
So in that department is considered the non-departmental. That's the name of it. I'm meaning it's not like got staff in there and whatever. And those numbers, because we had the Sisson Museum come up recently. So what I did was I looked at what was in that cost center, and I basically said, okay, who is this money supposed to go to? And I broke it out, and in future I will budget it as a specific line item for the specific agency. And the Sisson Museum was a little addition from what was in that, and the 65 is what was in there for the Visitors Bureau, the chamber, and there wasn't any in there for the marketing. So I will break that out in future budgets, so we're very clear on exactly what we're approving in the adopted budget. But yeah, at this point, that's not in there, so it'll be additional.
Okay. Casey, you had a comment?
I was just in agreement that the 30,000 doesn't really seem tenable. It sounds more like making up for the 15 that was not paid last year and then this year, which in the agenda item here, it mentions a one-time payment, but paying last year and then paying this year at the same time kind of sounds like we're moving towards an every year thing, which is something it doesn't sound like we can afford to do at this point. So I personally would be more on board with something in like what John said in the 8 to 10 range.
All right. Well, then on that motion, do we have a motion on a number? Or?
So just to clarify, that would be like a flat 75 moving forward until we reevaluate. Am I hearing
With
that
the 10
correctly from
with the 10
with the
plus the
10 plus the
65.
65.
Yes.
So are you saying that we'll move to go permanently from 65 to 75, so we don't have to have this debate anymore? All right, so how are we gonna word this? I'll move to increase permanently the stipend from the city to the Chamber of Commerce for running the visitor center exclusively, dedicated fashion, those funds, with starting in this fiscal year.
Okay, roll call.
Councilwoman Klur. Aye. Councilman Collings.
Aye.
Councilman Stacklet.
Aye.
Councilman Globman.
Aye.
Mayor Redmond.
Aye.
All ayes.
Okay. One more item. All right, thank you, ladies. All right, number 16, discussion and possible action, the surplus lands, exempt surplus lands declaration. And we move on to our city planner who's been more than patient waiting for us to get here. Mr. Mitchell, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor John, Handsome John, council members. This is a handful of items here. So what you're doing is, this action is going to be the first thing that's going to get the movement on the landing. So this must be done to qualify with HCD's mandates for declaring surplus land for one or more of three purposes: housing, so affordable housing, deed restricted affordable housing, recreation purposes, or school facilities. The latter is unlikely on this site given context. The other two are quite real possibilities. By this action, you're going to designate those three landing parcels. Those are all city-owned parcels, not to be confused with the three smaller ones that are not city-owned, but they're very much part of the conversation around the landing. You're also identifying a subset of those three parcels which qualify as exempt housing because they have a legally valid restriction against housing that was not developed by us. So that was a county-driven, EPA-approved condition within the environmental context, which precludes housing development, and that is soon to be a recorded covenant. We have it mapped, we have it surveyed, we know what the numbers are. We're just waiting for the legal documentation. Once we receive that, this resolution, should you approve it tonight, will get packaged up along with the findings for the exempt portions of these parcels. That information gets sent off to HCD for recording, which initiates a process described in the staff report, which is a 60-day notice of availability, during which affordable housing developers will contemplate proposing to develop affordable housing on these three parcels. If anyone submits interest, we would then engage in a good faith negotiations for 90 days. After that, if we agree, then there are stipulations with respect to the quantity of proposed residential development that should be or shall be by SLA, State Surplus Lands Act, as deed restricted affordable at 60% AMI or less. The numbers here in the staff report are approximate, though they have been surveyed. It is certainly within a ministerial, non-substantive staff level revision to these numbers moving forward. In other words, you don't need to look at this again. This could tweak a little bit, plus or minus based on final findings, survey, and covenant numbers particularly. So we may tweak those numbers just a little bit. If they change dramatically, you'll be the first to know about it, and additional action might be necessary. There's two courses of action. If no one responds to the NOA, we dispose the land outside of the SLA. That doesn't mean we're off the affordable housing hook. There still needs to be 15% of whatever housing is proposed moving forward needs to be dedicated for affordable purposes. Disposal of the land inside the SLA is a little more prescribed, and that number is 25% of any housing proposed moving forward. The obvious question is, well, what does that mean in terms of number of affordable housing units? HC does obviously, they don't know what this land looks like. They don't know what the context is all about. They're not going to give us a number. They're going to give us a percentage of housing proposed, 15, as I said, outside and 25% inside SLA. Concurrent with this, as a part of our housing element, staff, along with consultants, as authorized by HCD, has done a great deal of analysis around suitable housing sites. Housing suitability and site designations, therefore, are a legally defined term of reference within HCD's terminology as applies to what we as a city must mandate for affordable housing. So the next step between this action and moving forward to submit the NOA to the state will be a suitability analysis based on that definition. We will take off the table things like the sustainability resiliency grant that we've submitted to EPA. That will qualify for some of the the recreational components of that surplus land number. We also have some soil compaction problems. We also have some slope issues. We have some wetlands issues. Potentially, we have some high fire severity zone issues. All of this analysis is fair game between now and the time we submit to HCD. So the number that you see in here, estimated at 93.45 acres of net surplus land, is going to come down a great deal. My estimation, back of the napkin, is it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 27 to 34 acres of that 93, which actually is going to meet that definition of suitable housing area. You do the numbers on that at 15 units an acre, you quickly arrive at an estimation of between 1 and 400 units on site, 15% of which outside of SLA would likely be designated as affordable housing, or 25% of that number would be designated within the Surplus Lands Act. So there's a big range there, lots of ifs, lots of analysis to be done, but this is the very first act that HCD requires that we do. So that's it in a nutshell. Happy to help with questions.
Any questions for the nutshell? Go ahead.
Jeff, could you help me just a little bit here? The target of the affordable housing is relative to the median income and goes, is it, I heard you say it goes up to 60% of the average, is average median income, is that what it is?
It's countywide median income, Siskiyou County median income, right. Yes. And the state controls what those numbers are.
Right. How far down does it go?
Very low is, there is no bottom, but it is, the basic division is 80 to 100% of AMI, 60 to 80% and below 60. So the formula really is wherever you are on that scale, if you're at lower affordability, you develop fewer units. HCD gives you a net affordability baseline. If you are proposing to develop on the higher affordability scale, so 80 to 100% of AMI, you're required to build more housing units. More expense, more units, less expense, fewer units.
If you are in the 80 to 100 or even up to 120%, which I think is the top end.
That's the top end, you're right. Yeah.
Of moderate, yeah.
80 to 120.
Does that go into what's typically referred to as the donut hole of missing housing, or are we still kind of below that?
Well, it's easy to conflate what's what's called the donut hole or missing middle with deed-restricted affordable housing.
And I'm doing just that. I
Yeah,
think.
so to be clear, the deed-restricted housing or capital A affordable housing is a mandate that is applied to regional housing needs assessment numbers. That is our reasonable share, that is this city's reasonable share to achieve housing targets Siskiyou County-wide. The last 8-year housing element cycle, we were in the neighborhood of 44 housing units.
Right.
Right? We met that. We did a good job. We now have about 35 affordable housing units in the pipeline. Our 6th cycle, or forecasted regional housing needs assessment over the next 8 years, is 2 units. If you back into the math on affordability for the landing itself, even on the low end, we're well above that legal baseline. The missing middle, sorry, one more final thought. The missing middle is all other affordable housing that is affordable by design. I call it small a affordable housing. So that's all other multifamily housing that HCD targets us for that is not deed restricted, and it is affordable by its very construction and design.
And can I add a piece to this before you go on? And I know you guys have all heard this, building 60-ish to 120 MFI, median family income, is, that's the holy grail. That is, I think, what we want to have done, we want to see. The issue is, and this is across California, is there are tons of grants, PLHA funds, affordable housing tax credits to pay for that lower income. To make workforce housing pencil, there isn't anything there. I mean, it's lean. If you're going to actually build it and you're a developer, you're not seeing any profit. So that's the hardest piece to build. And when Jeff and I were going over these numbers and we're hearing about the volume of what falls in the affordable category, that people that specialize in this can chase those grants and those subsidies. It's a lot. It's a lot of units.
If I may, let me make sure I understand what you're saying. And Jeff, there's those guarantees of affordability for 45 or 55 years that are associated with this income qualified affordable housing relative to worker housing, a worker affordable housing, which doesn't qualify for grants because it's got criteria on it that don't meet the government's criteria for loans and grants that make the type of affordable housing that we're talking about.
Yeah, this is not what we're talking about in terms of missing middle or small a affordable. This is capital A deed restricted housing, which needs to be targeted at a percentage of AMI to generate a net number of affordable units for 55 years on the landing site. Now, these are contiguous parcels, as you know, so that number can move around anywhere on the site, depending on where the market presents itself.
And did I hear you say that we were at 44 for our target number, and we've got 35 or so in the pipeline? What was the number 2 that we're 2 short? Or
2.
2's in the next 8 years?
Next year, yeah. Next 8 years, 2.
We're just one more question. Do you bank affordable housing?
They don't let you do that.
Because if we only need 2 and we came up with 60, let's say, you don't bank for the next segment.
No, and the reason is that the RENA numbers are regional share, not local share. Every community is different. If we build 2 units, I think there probably isn't an individual in this room, maybe certainly in the city, that would agree that our housing shortage is resolved by 2 more units.
No.
So HCD gets that, and so they're well aware. Yeah.
And to hit, I think what's becoming obvious is that, larger issue is, and we've talked about this ad infinitum, when Sacramento passes laws, they're thinking about laws that will be enacted in dense urban environments. And, and so these goals make sense. When you are in a rural, less dense environment, they may not. It's a good question on, we've lost 100 homes in the mill fire. We definitely have a huge demand for workforce housing and some affordable. The question to me is this product type, if it's all affordable and we're required to do it, is there the demand? And then the next question is, how is the impact, or how is the community going to receive this news?
Okay. We'll open this up to public comment. Go ahead, Joanna.
Johanna Altwerfer. So I'm not sure, I think I have more questions, and so I'm not sure what the answers are, and I think this came up with we're only 1 to 2 short for our RH&A numbers, so a lot of cities don't meet that at all. So in terms of meeting our state requirements, I mean, I think we're right there, and I think affordable housing, quote unquote, that was also alluded to by some of you here, is it's not really affordable for the people that actually need it because it's based on these high medians. And I think we need to be cognizant of that, because what is our demographic made up of, and what is it that we're attracting here? We're attracting, well, we have a lot of seniors, we have a lot of people that come out of town for investments in real estate, and then there's that worker shortage housing. And it seems to me that some of these low affordable housings units are still very expensive for the average person who's working here in the city. And the Danco project is going to, and as I understand it, they're breaking ground this year, I think. So, and I think they're going to bring us over that 1 to 2 RH&A. So we will have met that. And like I said, a lot of cities don't even meet that. Anyway, so I just kind of question, how does all that fit into what you're discussing here? And is it really going to solve the problem? The other question I have is, a lot of this affordable housing is only for 50 years, and if someone rents a place, they're not going to be protected for their lifetime. They will have, if you're 25, you'll be 75, and what happens to you when you're 75? Are you going to be put out on the street? So I think we need to think long-term here, because we don't want to put our seniors in harm's way at a critical time in their life when they can't get more revenue. And then as far as I heard wetlands, and I want to just ask the city to please update the maps for the actual wetlands, because I found out about 4 or 5 years ago that we have some discrepancies in our maps that apparently the city is aware of, but it's never been updated, and I think it's the USDA or somebody has to go and update that. But apparently we're handing out incorrect maps to developers and people who are looking for information, and I really think it's important that we are more cognizant of that. And I know most of Mount Shasta is probably wetland, but there are swaths of land that have significant wetland. So anyway, those were the kind of questions and concerns I had. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. All right, seeing nobody else, we will close public comment, bring it back to discussion. For a motion.
Any more debate? Nope. All right. I'll move to approve resolution CCR-24-04, resolution of the Mount Shasta City Council declaring real estate property known as The Landing, APNS 67-10-10, 67-10-20, and 67-10-140 as surplus land, and portions of the APNS 67-10-10, 67-10-20 as exempt surplus land, directing staff to prepare and submit a notice of availability, authorizing the city manager to comply with the Surplus Land Act, and declaring such action exempt from CEQA.
Second.
All right, one more roll call.
Councilwoman Klur,
Aye.
Councilman Stackflet,
Aye.
Councilman Globman,
Aye.
Mayor Redmond.
We need Collings first.
One more time.
Aye, aye, aye.
You got to say his name.
I'm so sorry, I'm getting
No
tired.
worries.
Councilman Collings,
Aye.
Mayor Redmond.
Aye.
All ayes.
All right, there we go. Any outside
Yeah.
meetings to report?
Yeah. So
Call your interpretive or?
no, that's a good point. I haven't
Nothing
heard
new
from
on that?
haven't heard from them. Yeah, that place might be closed.
It didn't sound good for him.
So we have the audit committee. Tessa couldn't make it. She chimed in from a distance. I did make it. The good news is that the audit was completed in good time. So this is beginning of January, so that's great. There's one finding. Don't have to get into the details of this because this will be a budget, an agenda item. We have to go from draft to approval by the council, right? So go into the details of that meeting later. We have the library expansion committee, and I don't know what to say except that there's a great debate as to what we want from Knoll and Tam, the firm that is the architectural firm and potentially the design engineering firm. There's a debate as to whether we want a full plan, which includes the full build out, or limit it to just the main add-on to the library. Does that summarize it pretty clearly? And it's just slowing things down. Todd, would you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I think we've got agreement that, and I haven't heard from one of our key members, but there seems to be agreement across the board, other than said key member, on the production of a set of plans that includes the addition of a conference room, and then a second phase, if we so choose, for improvements to the entryway, with the thinking being that if we just did a renovation of the library, it wouldn't be particularly attractive, and if we were seeking outside funding in terms of donors, that it wouldn't be something that would be as attractive as an addition, and frankly, the majority committee feels that if we've gone through all of this, we should get something out of this other than just a refresh. Now, the next item up for debate is whether Knoll and Tam truly just produces a plan set, turns it over to us, and we find a GC, potentially an architect, to see this through, and they make their own interpretations, or whether we have Knoll and Tam in the wings, pay them a bit to make sure that their original design intent is seen through. And if you look at the refresh budget numbers, it seems to me, and this is just my opinion, and it doesn't really matter because it's up to the folks that are closest to the library, is that the oversight of Noel and Tam will keep us from ending up in a situation like we did last time on, with our, an architectural designer and the engineering firm that was to see this through.
So we don't have a final design. We don't have a project designed to go out to bid for construction. So we're not quite there yet, but moving along. And lastly, the meeting Jeff and Casey and I went to was the League of Local Agencies, and that was pretty typical meeting, except there was a long presentation by a housing expert at the county level who mentioned something very important. Do you want to mention that about Danco? Or do you think it's already common knowledge? Because I didn't know it until the meeting.
Well, apparently the Danco, the builder of the 25 units on Chestnut and
Alma, Ivy, and Field Extension. Yep.
Yeah, Chestnut and Ivy got their final loan put in place in December and will break ground. The woman said March, but
May, June.
May, June, yeah. But I told the story that I went with the city manager at the time 11 years ago over to Danco to discuss this project. It may not move fast, but it eventually gets there, and it's nice to see those 25 units finally coming to fruition.
Well, I was on the planning commission when they first came through with their blueprint designs, and other than 2 stories of snow falling on the sidewalks to crush children and no snow removal designed for plowing or anywhere to put snow, they had some learning lessons that way. But yeah, definitely showing just 2 stories of just sloped roof, just crushing children with snowfall was not the best design. So some other issues as well, but yeah. No, but luckily they got their design together. There's no more sidewalks underneath the roof from the looks of it.
Anyhow, that's it for my meetings.
Okay. Nobody else? All right, moving on to future agenda items and meetings. So we've got Surplus Land Act, resolution declaration for the landing, follow-up today. We have a first reading of an ordinance pertaining to snow removal in the downtown in February. Condemnation of Chestnut parcels, Cosmont proposal for services to navigate the Surplus Land Act. TBD, we've got the Beautification Committee presentation to council. TBD, the rest of these are all TBD as well. Survey of Washington Avenue and discussion and possible action, rental, lease, or purchase of lot located at the northwest corner of Alma and North Mount Shasta Boulevard. Anybody else want to add anything?
The audit has to be voted on by the council. Final.
Gotcha. That's on. Tess, anything?
That should be next meeting.
Casey, anything you want to add to the agenda item right now, or you good?
Nope, good at this time. Thank you.
All right, we'll have fun in Washington, D.C., and tomorrow with the rest of the Satitla National Group. All right, on that note, we're adjourned.